morning. Please stand and worship with us. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
This has got a yellow light on it. Go. Good, because I didn't want to use that. So let's start over. My name's Fred, and it's great to be able to have all of you here this morning. Oh, mercy. It is good to be able to be here and to be heard now, so that's good as well. So as you're turning to Hebrews 12, hopefully we'll give you an opportunity to be able to do that. Hebrews 12, we're going to be looking there in just a moment. We don't like to do a bunch of announcement kind of stuff on holiday-type Sundays like this, but I do want to remind, in light of this beginning next week, the Join the Team class is beginning next week. So for those of you that have talked to me about that, just a reminder, that's starting up next week, so you can plan towards that. And then it runs the 3 Sundays. And if this is new to you, this is basically a class. It's a prerequisite if you want to join the church, kind of a class. We only do this a couple times a year, so if there's any inkling towards that in the future, you might want to be able to take this class now while we're offering it. But it's also just a great class to be able to get to know a little bit more about us as a church. I teach the class. It gives you access to me interacting on some of the things, background of the church. So if you're interested in that, see me on that, because we do have lunch included with that, and so to make sure we have enough food and so forth provided for that, you need to talk to me on that today or early this week. Reach out to me on that, okay? So good stuff. Looking forward to that with those of you that are doing that with us. Now, being that it's Thanksgiving week, I know this is going to come as a shock to you today, but today's message is going to focus a little bit on Thanksgiving. So we're gonna go there. And actually, it's kind of interesting as you look at prayer itself. Just looking at prayer itself, it's oftentimes in the Bible described as thanks. So much so that it kind of ends up being a sort of shorthand way of referencing prayer. Like, would you give thanks? What they mean there is prayer. Actually, just looking at Jesus as he prayed, you see this phrase, he gave thanks, quite a bit. This is the feeding the 5,000 as he gave thanks there. He prayed before they ate there. The feeding of the 4,000, it's a similar kind of phrase. You look at the Lord's Supper where they were eating there in Matthew chapter 26 and so forth. He took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he said to them, he's praying. It's a shorthand for he's praying, right? And then Paul, when he records the same thing later in 1 Corinthians 11, says the exact same thing, again, quoting of Jesus. And speaking, of course, of Paul, it's interesting to be able to look at Paul and his praying as well. And again, before a meal here in Acts 27, there was a shipwreck. He shipwrecked on an island, and even in that context, they paused before a meal and they gave thanks, shorthand for prayer, and their gratitude expressed there. And of course, Paul does this like all over the place. You look through all these different books, Romans, 1 Corinthians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st, 2nd Thessalonians. There's all these prayers at the beginning where he thanks God for the very people that he's writing to. 2 Timothy 1, he prays similarly for Timothy, and Philemon for Philemon, and a couple other people that are there, as well as the church that is there. Here's the reason that I bring this up. It's interesting to be able to look at all of this, because what you see is with Jesus and with the Apostle Paul, there's a basic structure there of, yes, there's a prayer of gratitude before eating, like that's something that they do, right? But there's also this prayer equaling gratitude. Like as they go into prayer, that's a normal part of the way that they pray, is to include gratitude, or you could flip it around. Gratitude leads me then to prayer, expressing that to God. So if we're going to prayer, it's typically going to include gratitude. Like that's how closely those things are linked as you look at Jesus's and the Apostle Paul's prayer life. It's interesting. We can see similar reflected as we look at the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, there's sections of the Psalms, like Psalms 136, other Psalms as well, but Psalms 136 is just this huge prayer of gratitude, and it's just being massively encouraged there. 4 times it says in Psalm 136, give thanks to the Lord, or give thanks to God. 3 times it says it right at the very beginning. 3 times, give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. 3 times introduces it, and then at the very end of the chapter it says it as well. And what's in between those giving thanks is this whole list of God's love. 26 times it talks about God's love for us, like he loves, all the way down through this whole section. 8 times speaking of him who has done X, Y, and Z for us. So just this incredible movement of thanksgiving towards God. In Daniel chapter 6, of course, again, looking at prayer, if you know the scenario there at all, Daniel was commanded not to pray. It was made illegal for him to be able to pray. And it says that he went, as his usual, and prayed 3 times a day. And we're going to make this illegal. That's fine. I'm going to still do what God has called me to do. And he goes to prayer. And he gave thanks, it says. Even under that kind of pressure, it says he gave thanks to God. It's interesting. We could go on and on, of course, talking about the connection between prayer and gratitude. But the Bible stance, both in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, is basically this. There's this connection between thanksgiving and prayer. It's a core aspect of prayer. And that's true. That's true. But here's the deal. Here's the problem. With Thanksgiving for some of us here today, coming up here on Thursday, the problem for some of us is that we aren't thankful. And I understand why. For some of us, we're heading into Thanksgiving this Thursday, not with a heart full of gratitude, but with a heart full of pain and bitterness over all sorts of different things. All sorts of things in our life that are off, things that are not good. Bad stuff has happened to us. Maybe our job is really messed up right now. Or we're looking for a job and can't even find a job. Or maybe our marriage is really messed up right now. Or maybe we're single and we don't want to be single. Maybe we've got some health issues that are making life super hard for us right now. Maybe, like on and on and on it could go, all the different scenarios that are pressing in on us that are hard. All sorts of challenges that time themselves just right for us, where we're heading into the week of Thanksgiving and we're not really feeling it. We're not really that thankful. There's not any real sense of genuine gratitude to God, because in our view, if we're being honest with ourselves, there's not a whole lot we can think of to be thankful for right now. And that mindset for some of us, that's the honest headspace that some of us are in. And that's real. And that's real, and it's honest. And if you're feeling that way this morning, you're very much not alone, as others are there and in that same boat, for sure. But here's the deal. As God approaches all of that this morning, he doesn't want to just leave us in that spot. He doesn't want to leave us just sitting and stewing over all the problems and all of the hard in life. And actually, a great deal of the Bible is spent speaking to that very thing. But a very interesting place where he speaks to it is in the often overlooked or underlooked at vantage point of Hebrews chapter 12. Because Hebrews chapter 12 is kind of wonky in what it says. It comes at this from a different angle you might not be looking at. It says this in verse 15, "See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many." And I want you to notice here as we begin looking at this that there's two things that are stated here. Falling short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up. There's a twofold emphasis. You see it, the one thing, and then it adds a second. This twofold emphasis is actually an important pattern to notice. It's a major literary device to this section, if you will. In the previous verse, it says, "Make every effort to live at peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord." So there's to live in the peace, right? Live in peace and be holy. Doing the double thing again. Two things emphasized. There's a link between them. They flow together. So God puts them together here. Ditto the verse that follows. "See to it that no one is sexually immoral or godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son." So sexual immorality is brought up, as is being godless like Esau. There's nothing sexual in that story with Esau, if you know that story, but there's a solid connection between sexual immorality and godlessness. And so the two things are put together. So verse 15 makes this similar twofold statement, and we're going to look at the twofold aspect here in a minute and how that connects. But first, I want you to notice with me here that this twofold statement is coming off of a quick list of important things. Make every effort to, like he's raising the importance level, make every effort to, see to it that, see that no one is, and emphasizing all that, making reference here that this is a community project, if you will. This is something that as a church family we're supposed to be working at together on. This isn't an individual thing that we just worry about ourselves and whatever. No. There's an individual aspect. I'm supposed to be paying attention to this, but I'm supposed to be paying attention to it for all of us. Coming alongside of all of us, we have this individual responsibility, and it's to our fellow believers in Christ. Here specifically within a local church is the context that he's giving. So make every effort to see that no one is, see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root penetrates deep into heart, deep into my head, deep into my thinking. Make sure no bitter root grows up, becomes fully mature. When a root takes deep root and gets fully mature, what happens? It grows up into a full-blown stinking tree. And it's enormous, the impact of a healthy root, if you will. Make sure that a bitter root doesn't grow up to grow up into trouble, all kinds of troubles in the way I view you, and then that view that I have of you then impacts that relationship we have with each other. And there's that turmoil that causes them between us, but then that spider webs out and gets wider and wider and defiles many, it says. That bitter root damages all kinds of things, not just me and not just you, but it damages those that are around us. That bitter root, it just spreads, and it spreads rather quickly. But such is the nature of bitterness. Bitterness, once rooted in our hearts, bitterness never stays contained. It always spills over. We might think that our bitterness impacts no one but us, but the reality is it impacts everyone around us, which is part of the reason this section began with this call on all of us to look out for each other on this, to see to it that no one here in our church develops bitter roots. There's church community, and there's working together on this. Actually, earlier in the same chapter here, we're in Hebrews chapter 12. You look back up at verse 1. Verse 1 says this, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses." We, this community again, speaking of us together, we're not alone in any of this. And we're not alone in that there's people that have gone before us as well. There's not just people here immediately in our church, but there's Christians that have lived in other time periods, people that have gone before us. The witnesses that he's making reference to here, he actually lists out in chapter 11, the chapter prior to this. If you're familiar at all with the Bible, this section of the Bible is generally referred to as the halls of faith. This list of who's who, if you will, and people who have stepped stepped out on faith and put their faith and trust in God and done what he's called them to do. By faith, they went and did this. By faith, they went and did this. By faith, by faith, by faith, and they went and did all these different things. That list is there. And in that list here, in chapter 11, if you go back to it, there's two distinct features that you see in that entire list. Two distinct features that you see. The first distinction is that you see that all those people are looking to the future hope that is in God. They're looking to the future hope that is in God. For instance, in verse 6, it says, and without faith, it is impossible to be able to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he is a rewarder of those who earnestly seek him. Rewarder of future things. We're looking future. We're not just looking at the lens of everything being in the here and the now, but looking at some future things. In verse 8, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as an inheritance, looking down the road, he obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. For he was looking forward to future things, forward things. Verse 13 to 16, all these people were still living by faith when they died. They were still looking forward. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. They're looking out on the horizon, the future of some things, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers here on earth. This is not my home. Everything is not about just the here and the now. There are future things coming. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. Right, they're looking to that future country, that place they have in heaven. If they'd been thinking just of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Like if they're just thinking the here and now, then that's where the mind immediately goes, right? If our focus becomes all about the immediate of the here and the now, then our eyes slowly move off the eternal altogether. And God ends up being completely ignored. Eternal realities get quickly clouded over, and our lives become consumed only with the immediate. But that's not what Christ followers do. It's not what the great heroes of the faith did. No, instead of that, they were longing for a better country, living for a heavenly one, their eyes fixed there. Notice in all of this, it's all future hope in God. Yes, there's the hard and the here and the now, and yes, God has promised us some things that are not going to happen in our lifetimes here on earth, but our home is not here. Everything is not about just the here and the now. Our home is in heaven, and so we live in the here and the now accordingly. So that's number one. And number two is there's realism as to the present, looking at reality around us, not putting our head in the sand at all. Like there's some positive things when we look at reality. Like he says, I don't have time to tell about, and he lists all these people, all those people who through faith, they did these things. Through faith, they conquered kingdoms, administered justice, gained what was promised, shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Like, holy smokes, right? We look at all this. Like, these people were kicking butt, right? Like, they had life by the tail. Like, things were going really, 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 really good. And some of us, we can look at all this, we can get really discouraged because that's not us, right? That's not our existence at all. No, these people are conquerors. They are victors. They're doing everything right. Like everything they touch just turns to gold. You know, when they fart, it smells like rose-scented Febreze. Like everything is turning up roses for them. And we look at that and we're like, I can't identify with that. That's not my world. That's not where I live at all. That's just not us. But this is true for some people, isn't it? It's true for some people. We see some people walk with God and their life just seems to turn out all roses. So we get kind of bitter because that's not us. But notice with me here that Hebrews 12 isn't done. It continues. It shows us the flip side of this. As yes, there are some positives, but there's also some negatives. There's also some negatives, as in, we just looked at what we looked at last week with Habakkuk, right? God doesn't expect us to put our head in the sand and not see the realities around us and the fact that everything doesn't always go swimmingly. So take a look at how this verse ends. This is what we just looked at, all this positive stuff. But notice the way this verse ends. But there were others who were tortured. Not everything goes roses for everyone. This is some people. But for others, there were others who were tortured. refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Oh, this is interesting. This brings up a very huge historical reality. Throughout church history, there's been time periods where people have been called to recant their faith in Jesus. Like say you don't believe in Jesus, say you don't believe in the good news of the gospel of Christ, like just deny all that and you'll live. If not, we're going to beat the snot out of you, or we're going to kill you. Like that has been a thing at different times throughout church history. If they choose to follow Jesus, their lives will get remarkably worse, not better. In the short term, in the temporary here and now, life would get much worse, not better. Some faced jeers and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawn in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goat skins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. These folks did not have the Disney lived happily ever after type existence here on earth at all. And yet they put their faith and hope in God. They looked to the future with some things, not resting everything on the here and the now and the exacts of every moment here. No, they were not held captive in their minds to just an existence in the presence, that this is all that there is, because that's not true. It's not all just about immediate and the here and the now. Everything we looked at together last week in Habakkuk. So in light of number 1 and number 2 here, we actually need to come off of this in chapter 11 and go back to chapter 12. Right after stating all of this, we flip the page, so to speak, and look at chapter 12. Chapter 12 begins this way. In light of all of this, it says, therefore, in light of all that, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, as in all these people that have gone before us, some seeing great successes within their lifetimes, all kinds of great things, while others didn't see zip. But they all had this in common. They were laser focused on God himself and on the future that he was laying out for them, so they kept serving him. Laser focused on God and on his calling for their lives. Therefore, since we know about all of those people, we have that in our past, we know of those people in the past, we then can walk forward in our own lives with boldness, knowing that we're not weird or that this some kind of bad stuff going on in our life means that we're doing something wrong. No. We actually stand in very good company in living out our lives for Jesus. Therefore, since we have all those people in our past cheering us on, so to speak, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles us. Yeah, there's the sin stuff that messes with us. It tangles us up in all sorts of things, so we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to mess with any of that. But there's also the other nonsense stuff that can slow us down. So we want to ditch all of that as well, and we want to simply run. We want to run. Let us run with perseverance the race that is marked out for us, as in each of us have our own race, you might say. Each of us has our own different set of circumstances that we're dealing with. There's my boss. Like, you don't understand my boss, right? And we talk sometimes about work and the different experiences that we have and whatever, and you don't understand my boss, right? Yeah, each of us has an individual deal there, right? My boss, my spouse, or not a spouse, or my kids, or no kids, or my parents, or parents that have not been present in our lives, or parents that have passed on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We all have unique paths marked out for us. And what God has put in front of us, we've got to run with that. We've got to run with that, with perseverance, as we know full well that we are not alone in all of this. Each person that's sitting around us here today is going to step into tomorrow with all of their unique things that they are facing, all of their unique challenges. So yes, we need to know that about each other so that we can encourage each other for sure. But notice with me that what follows this is not that. Because yes, encouraging each other is great, and we need to do that. Is having people encourage us is helpful to the journey, right? But notice with me here that that's not where this verse focuses. It doesn't focus us on ourselves nor on the encouragement of others, but rather it focuses us on Jesus. Fixing our eyes on Jesus. He's the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. So he is our focus. And when we start focusing on Jesus, we see some things. We see some things. For the joy that was set before him, out ahead of him, he's looking out ahead. He's not looking at just the right now. Right now is what for him? Pain. He's headed to the cross, and he endured that cross. I mean, that was hard, enormously so, but he endured it. He bore up under it, scorning its shame, it says. I love that word picture there, scorning its shame. Jesus looking down on shame. Usually shame, we have all these, shame type thoughts in our heads, and they press down on us. Jesus rises above all that and looks down on the shame. There is a shame associated with the cross. The Roman cross was a brutal form of execution, and part of that was to shame people and to send a message to everybody else. Jesus goes, no, I'm looking down on all of that because there is something bigger. There's something that I'm doing that's bigger than this momentary crucifixion, providing for the sins of the world that is going to stretch out into eternity. He endured the cross. He scorned the shame, and then he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, the power position, if you will, right? That came in time, though. It was not an immediate thing. It was a later thing. And for some of us here, we might be looking at all this and be going, okay, cool, Pastor Mark. Jesus did all that, but what does that have to do? What does that have to do with me and all the garbage that I have to deal with in my own life? And that's a great question, one that God takes on rather directly here in what he says in the very next verse. Consider him. Consider him. Consider Jesus. Think about Jesus and everything that he went through for us, the example that he set there and so forth. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners. Like, Jesus gets it when we're going through different things. He gets it. He lived here. He went through some stuff, right? He had resistance nonstop. His life was full of very few wins and lots of losses. Remember, they killed him in the end. Remember that. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that, here's the reason, here's the point, thinking about Jesus, enduring hard through all of his life here. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Do you see it? Do you see what God is telling us here? He's reminding us, among other things, to be able to keep going. And as we looked at earlier, he builds on top of all of this by then blatantly encouraging us directly, just a few verses later, to what we looked at the beginning. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. No bitter root. We need to see to it. Remember? It says that. We need to help each other combat bitter roots. We need to be of help and encouragement and expressing gratitude to each other and so forth, for sure. But ultimately, even if others fail to do as God has commanded them, right? Check this out, right? Even if everyone around us fails to do what God has called them to do, we ourselves are assured of eternity and the goodness of God. His grace. His grace. Let us not fall short of a mindset of a life and a mindset of and a life lived out of grace. God's grace to us and to others. We desperately need to remember the cross and God's grace poured out to us there and on others, that no bitter root might grow, that no bitter root might fester in us, hurting us with our spouse or with our kids or with our parents or friends or relatives, and certainly with each other here at our as a part of our church family. Like, this is really, really big here. This idea that grace and bitterness are connected, that a lack of one feeds and grows the other one. If we sense bitterness growing, we know where we need to turn. Grace. Grace. And grace gained is grace given, which leads then to full-out gratitude and a genuine thankfulness to God. As we grow in grace, our gratitude grows and bitterness shrinks. Growth in grace makes us fitter, not bitter. I once heard a quote. It said this. It said, Christianity is like a nail. Christianity is like a nail. The harder you strike it, the deeper it goes. Any clue who said that? Super helpful, right? Who's that and how do you pronounce his name? I have no clue. I'm going to call him YY because he asked some questions and it's easier to pronounce. YY was the chairman of the Soviet anti-religious group, the League of the Militant Godless. If ever there was an aptly named group, right? That is just well named. Back in the 1920s and the 1930s, there was a heavy Soviet anti-religious type pressure going on, right? Very heavy-handed. People were beaten up, thrown in jail, all kinds, made to disappear and unalive and so forth, right? And they did all that trying to silence and stamp out Christianity. But what they found is it actually firmed up people's belief rather than causing it to be able to waver. And YY here actually got to the point where he was worried that the activities that he was doing against Christians were actually producing more Christians and better Christians. And he made this statement. Yeah, what YY discovered here was that not only what the Bible itself has to say, but what all of human history has shown, that for a true follower of Jesus, the harder life gets, the deeper the Christian presses into Jesus. Pressure makes a true follower of Jesus fitter, not bitter. And Hebrews 11 here gives us here the great halls of faith we just sketched out a little bit together. But you look at this whole list of people who got fitter, not bitter. Like their faith grew and their walk with God was stellar, even in circumstances that were horrible. But we don't have to look back that far, right, to be able to see other stories where we could look at more modern people, if you will, who've grown fitter and not bitter. And I don't know about you, but like I enjoy reading different missionary stories where over the years various missionaries have gone to this and that mission field, and God is just, you've seen, thousands of people, in some instances millions of people come to know Christ. It's exciting to be able to read those stories and hear how God uses those people. But not as many stories are told or books written by missionaries who serve just as valiantly, just as sacrificially, and yet they experienced no success. They only experienced hardship. Those missionaries could get bitter, but in researching their stories, you'll find that for most, they only grew fitter, not bitter. As grace grew, not a bitter root. For instance, Alan Gardner. You probably have not heard this guy's story. It was interesting. I bumped into his story and started researching and stuff. It was just fascinating to be able to learn about his life. And for fun, I typed his name into ChatGPT. I wanted to see what ChatGPT knew about this guy. And it was kind of interesting. Here's the very first thing ChatGPT said about his life. Here's the first thing it said. Alan Francis was a missionary who starved to death. Thank you, ChatGPT. Very, very succinct, but actually pretty good summary. That's exactly what happened. Alan was a missionary from UK, and he ultimately died in South America at the very southern tip on the south side of the Strait of Magellan. Is where he was seeking to go and minister to people there, and ultimately died here. Quoting from an article in the UK, I'm just going to read this and put some stuff on the screen, but quoting from this article, it says, for more than 17 years, he and often his family with him traveled all over the place. And it is hard, however, to find evidence of any lasting effect that his efforts might have had on the indigenous populations whom he sought to serve. What hindered his hopes was the sheer distance and danger of travel. His journal is a catalog of disasters encountered during his frustrated attempts to reach the tribespeople whom he wished to meet. He rarely arrived at his planned destination, and when he did, he was seldom able to remain long enough to be able to achieve any lasting success. Sounds like maybe how some of us feel sometimes today, right? Lots of big plans, and we work really, really hard at those plans only to see them all fail. Like that was Alan's entire life. On his final missions trip, when they left the big ship, they had a giant ship that they sailed across the ocean with, and then two smaller vessels. Couldn't get the bigger ship across the reefs and so forth to be able to land well, so they would park the boat out, if you will, launch in two smaller boats. But then they had trouble getting the boats back. They had shipwrecked. They had all kinds of problems. But they oopsed in that whole process. And when they offloaded from the big ship to the smaller ships to go on land, they left the majority of their gunpowder and shot back on the big boat, which meant they weren't able to hunt for food, which meant all the food they had was the food that they had brought with them, which was only about 6 months worth of food. So ultimately, they ended up starving to death. And in such a circumstance, one could get very bitter, right? Like, yes, we came out here. Like, that's on us. Yes, we came out here. And yes, we forgot the gunpowder in the shot. Like, that's on us. We made that mistake. But we're doing this for God, right? Like, I'm out here trying to tell people about you, God, and you're going to allow all this to happen? Like, what are you doing? Bitter. The bitter root could take hold. You could see how it could completely consume someone. God, we're doing this for you. How could you allow all this? But instead of that response, all of these men died. They starved to death without resorting to cannibalism and without any bitter root springing up in them. Said succinctly, they became fitter, not bitter. And we know all of this because Alan kept a diary. He actually gives us a blow-by-blow account of what happened as it was happening. And in that diary, there isn't even a whiff of any sort of bitter root, not a word. His final entry, written just 6 weeks before help arrived. 6 weeks? It's more bitterness, right? Like, they'd hurried up just a little bit more, right? 6 weeks. We missed it by 6 weeks. No bitterness. In his final entry, written just 6 weeks before help arrived, it was this. Here's what he wrote. Check out this man. This man whose eyes were so fixed on Jesus that despite his horrible circumstances, having failed his mission, seeing his friends and ministry partners die, while knowing full well he was about to die, his last words remain not only bitter root free, but oh so grace filled. Here's his final entry, September 5th, 1851. He writes, "Great and marvelous are the loving kindnesses of my gracious God to me." What? Wow. He has preserved me hitherto. I'm alive. And for 4 days now, although without bodily food, without any feelings of hunger and thirst. In other words, I know that I'm starving, but I'm not feeling it. I'm neither hungry nor thirsty. And this is his final entry into his journal before he dies. And with this entry, the entire entry is filled with praise and gratitude to God for his grace and for his kindness. Like, that's incredible. That's incredible. But such is the great cloud of witnesses who have gone before us. Oftentimes, we feel as if we're the only ones to have ever walked the planet and ever had some of the struggles that we've had. But we're not alone. And this is doubly true for followers of Jesus who are tempted to allow that root of bitterness to be able to grow instead of growing in grace, growing fitter, not bitter. And Alan here reminds us that we are not alone, and that despite the worst of circumstances, we can still grow fitter, not bitter. This was Alan's last official entry, but he did write one more thing. Steve Jobs is taking some notes, right? There's one more thing. This was his last official entry, but he did write one more thing in his journal. He scribbled, at the end of his journal, he scribbled a letter to the last surviving member of their group. And so here's what Alan wrote, his final words under horrible circumstances, facing death head on. Having concluded that the other 5 of their traveling partners had all died, they had split. For some background, the 2 boats that came in, the one ended up beached and kind of destroyed. They were able to use part of all that for a shelter, and they found shelter in a cave somewhere else. So the troop was split for shelter. And so he had concluded, though, with people coming and going, that these people had died, and they had been able to visit some, and then travel limitations happened, blah, 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 blah. But they concluded here at this point that the other 5 had all died. And so Alan writes to the last other surviving person. And I want you to notice what he wrote. Notice with me the incredible eyes fixed on Jesus things that are happening here. Fitter, not bitter. The fitter, not bitter nature of what he writes. Alan's final words, here's what he writes. My dear Mr. Williams, the Lord has seen fit to call home another of our little company. This is the Lord's prerogative. This is the Lord's timing. The Lord has seen fit to call home another of our little company. Our dear brother left the boat on Tuesday at noon and has not returned since. Doubtless, he is in the presence of his Redeemer, whom he served so faithfully. Wow. Yet a little while, we're going to die as well. Yet in a little while, and through grace, God's grace sustains us straight through to eternity, where we may join that blessed throng to sing the praises of Christ throughout eternity. What a picture he paints for us here. There's no bitterness. Yes, death is coming, but there's no bitterness as he awaits his blessing, the blessing of this opportunity through the very grace of Jesus that we have ahead of us, this blessing of joining all those who've come before us in singing the praises of Jesus. What an incredible picture he paints. His eyes so focused on Jesus. He is spiritually fit, as all of the setbacks and the hardships in life have only served to make him fitter, not bitter. The Russian was right. Pressure on Christians only drives them deeper. And so having grown deeper, Alan concludes with this. Here's his final words on earth. I am neither hungry nor thirsty, though 5 days without food. Marvelous, loving kindness to me, a sinner. Your affectionate brother in Christ, September 6th, 1851, Alan Gardner. Wow. And that's it. Those are the final words that he writes. With full awareness of his own sinfulness, while also being fully aware that God in his grace loves him and is still showing him loving kindness even in this dark moment. So listen. As we approach Thanksgiving this Thursday, you may or may not be in a place in your life where you can look around and see all roses. If you are, great. Like, we rejoice with you in that. That's great. But if you're not there right now, I want to encourage you. What a great cloud of witnesses we have in Hebrews 11, but also the many Alans of the world who have grown fitter, not bitter. May we this Thanksgiving be not bitter, but focused. Eyes fixed and focused on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. May we grow in grace that bitterness not take root in us, nor spread through us to others. May we join those in Hebrews 11 and 12, and may we join the Alan Gardners who's lived before us, being full of grace, praising God for his marvelous loving kindness to me, a sinner. As grace understood, grace comprehended leads to gratitude, a gratitude to God and a gratitude to God for others. Because here's the deal. At the end of the day, I might not have all this list of all the good things. I might have this list of all the bad things that all these other people experienced. But whatever the path that God chooses for me to walk in, I don't want a root of bitterness to grow and grow and grow and grow inside of me. I don't want to remain with my back turned to the cross. I want to directly face the cross and take in the beauty and the majesty of the cross and simply behold grace, the grace and mercy of God. I don't want to be bitter. I want to be fitter. I want to grow, not a bitter root, but a heart that comprehends grace given and responds to both God and people with that grace that God has so lavishly given to me. Stand with me if you would. Let me close this in a word of prayer. God, we do thank you today truly for all of your blessings to us. God, I recognize as we walk through what we've looked at here today, that for some sitting here this morning, this message has been difficult to be able to sit through, not because of the hard things they're facing, but because of the great things that are happening in their lives. Some of us have so many good things happening that we just really can't relate to Alan at all. God, if that's us this morning, help us to be humbled by not only Alan, but also by those others in Hebrews 11, that second distinct group of people, but both those groups of people through whom you're working through, God. If they're keeping their eyes focused on Jesus, the author and perfecter of their faith, there is good and eternal things. God, for those who've many obvious blessings today, help them to be grateful for all of those things. And God, for those among us who've had lives that have been more like Alan's, where literally nothing in life has ever gone quite according to plan. The path from birth to death has been a hard one every step of the way, big plans, lots of hard work and planning, but no fruit. No converts, no success at all by any worldly measures. And yet, such is the second list of people there in Hebrews 11. People who served faithfully and yet saw only pain and difficulty in this life. Their reward, though, as per their focus, was never about the here and the now. and their eyes were fully fixed on you, looking towards that future time in heaven. Therefore, as the difficulties came, they weren't crushed. No, they grew fitter, not bitter. Help us, Father, to grow fitter, not bitter ourselves. And help us this week, Father, as we celebrate Thanksgiving, to truly thank you for all of your blessings, for your grace and mercy extended to us in Jesus, for all of this world's small but really magnificent gestures that you've extended to us. Help us, Father, to appreciate them all, even as Alan did. May we, like him, may we be full of praise this week, hearts full of gratitude for all that you have done and to continue to do for us. In Jesus' name, for Jesus' glory in these days, we pray these things. Amen.